Hey everyone, I'm Fred Ranger and I hope you're doing good. I hope you're staying creative. I hope you're staying safe. It does kind of look like we will be able to travel soon, so this is a very good news. I've got personally 2 trips planned. Hopefully we can make it. One in New York coming in May, so be sure to follow if you want to see some very cool street photography in New York, and also one in Italy. I know right now it's not very open, but hopefully once we get there, it'll be possible to go. So those are the upcoming travels. Also, I want to let you know that I did release a zine before we dive into today's topic, and it is about silo numéro 5. So this is the silo number 5 in Montreal. As you can see here, there's a print section. There's a print version and there is a digital version if you are interested. I'll leave the links down below if you want to go see that. And yes, my dog actually ate a portion of it, so this is the beauty of having a dog. So this was my first ever zine, and it's now my first ever zine chewed by my dog. So hey, life, it's just life. So with that out of the way, I invite you to come with me into my books recommendation. I started that series a couple months ago, actually it's a year ago, and you guys did provide me with some very good feedback, and you kind of like this inspirational type of videos more than the gear reviews, because I'm a bit tired of the gear reviews. So sometimes I like to mix it up with some book reviews, because I know that for me, this is the way I stay creative, and to be honest, this is the way I stay inspired. So let's start with the first book I am recommending, and the first one is a bit of a big book, but I think it's a must for any street photographer, and this is the Street Photography Now. I'm gonna put it like that. I have a little camera rigged up here so I can do the 2 angles. So Street Photography Now, it's a mix of a lot of photographers, including Matt Stewart, that does the cover right here. So if you are interested in his photography, there is some in there. But not only that, I mean, you've got Christophe Agou right here. I've got a little thing here because that photo, very known photo, right? So from Jeff Mermelstein, and very good photo, but it's in this book. But that more than the photos themselves, I mean, they're very nice and it's kind of well printed. It's not the best paper, but it's still good enough. But it's the stories that I really like here, and it takes you into the mindset of the photographer. As an example here, it's exciting to make something extraordinary out of the banal. And that for me is a sentence that speaks to me, because sometimes we're like, oh, there's nothing to photograph. I live in that in this city. But if you just step outside and you take the ordinary life and you start documenting it, I'm pretty sure you're gonna find some interesting stuff, like those 2 photos that are pretty cool in my opinion. So highly recommend it. Of course, Joel Merowitz is in this book. This is the master, one of my preferred photographers out there. So his work in Ground Zero. I'm going to read you, a little sentence he wrote here. I brought my old street habits to bear on something that was much more than ordinary street life, and yet not quite documentary in any conventional sense. Wow. So, imagine yourself going through that book, seeing those crazy, inspiring photos, very different, very diverse. So if you haven't found your actual street photography style, you don't have to have a style, but if you're looking for one, you might be inspired by some of these. Some use very strong shadows, others are more about the flash photography, in your face type of photography, and others are just documenting life as it goes with a more laid back approach. Very, very good book. You can find it anywhere there's photography books, including of course Amazon. I'll put a link down below, but also in your photography shops. Some of them have books like Chemtech Photo here in Montreal. I know they have this book. Actually, I bought it there, and all the the other bookstores that you can think about. So first recommendation, Street Photography Now. Any street photographer should have this book in his collection. Highly, highly recommend it. The second one is another must-have in your collection, and this is with more than 300 photographs from the greatest street photographers on planet Earth. They describe it as the deep dive into the Magnum Photos archives, featuring outstanding work by, and then I'm going to put it here, there's a list of so many photographers, and I mean, those are Magnum photographers, right? So you can't go wrong with these photographers. But what I like about this book is actually the fact that it's regrouped by themes. So basically what you have here is a nice little themed type book where you've got in transit. So those are photos of people in transit. So either in the metro, cars, buses, as you can see here, a very cool shot from above, but also some very cool black and white photography work, of course, because a lot of it was done in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. So yeah, so really, really cool. Another book where you get a lot of variety. I mean, you have people that are just photographing on their days off, like you can see here, but I mean, it's not your regular tourist photos, as you can see. So very inspiring book, highly recommend it. I find myself going to that book multiple times throughout a year because sometimes I want to be inspired and go, to the market, and I can go right here playing the markets, and then I have got instant inspiration at what happens at the market. And these ranges from very, very old to, more recent. I think that's the 80s. No, that's, 88. So use of color, Kodachrome probably. And you've got also some notes, which is something that I really like about those books, where, you've got some inspiration from the photographer themselves and a bit of the history around the photographer. So Magnum Streetwise, highly recommend it if you want to get instant inspiration. Now, two other books that I highly recommend. First one is from probably my current personal favorite photographer named Matt Stewart, and this is his book on street photography. But I don't like this book necessarily for the photos, although the photos are super. Again, he's one of my favorite guys out there. I mean, who can take a photo like that? Matt Stewart, maybe you. I don't know. Maybe you're as good as Matt, but man, you got to be patient. You got to be sometimes lucky, but you have to have talent. But what I like about this book is that it talks about the mindset of a photographer, right? So he gives you tips and tricks on how to actually be a better photographer, put you in the right mindset, and also some very practical tips. See with a child's eyes. So this is, and then he's giving you some examples of the photos that he took with that specific mindset. He's giving you also some tips and tricks that are literally, like, you can apply them right when you get out of the door. This one, as an example, try this. As the American photographer Walker Evans famously said, stare, pray, listen, eavesdrops, die knowing something, you are not here for long. So this is, just something to think about when you are doing photography. Highly recommend it. Also, it's almost pocketable, so I really like the format of this book. Of course, those two other books here are not necessarily the most portable. This one, you can throw it in your bag when you're going on a weekend, long weekend, or at home or whatever, and it won't be a hassle to bring with you. And the last one, but not the least for this video, you have to have this book from Joel Mirowitz. I can never say the name right, so I'm sorry, Joel. I know sometimes we interact on Instagram and stuff, so maybe I'll take just a workshop with you, and we'll start with me trying to pronounce your name correctly. Joel Mirowitz. There you go. So I think I need a workshop with you. That's my call for you, and then we'll talk photography. But this guy, of course, he's one master of street photography. He basically made it even more popular because very approachable guy. He's also produced like Matt Stewart, and Matt, by the way, and Joel are buddies, and it shows because it really shows that Matt is being inspired by Joel. And I read in another book that he's one of his biggest inspiration. There's also a video on YouTube of both on stage talking about why they like street photography and some tips and tricks. And this book from Joel Mirowitz, maybe I said it right this time, contains some of this, some of his best work, some of the photos that you've seen in magazines, and also some of the photos that you've seen in museums and exhibitions and so on. I mean, that photo, can you see this? This is probably one of his iconic, most famous photo of that little girl. and the framing is just frame over frame with the doors. The guy's a master. I just love Joel. And of course, this is another one. But again, more than the photos themselves, he talks about some stuff to think about when you are doing street photography. As an example here, be open to humor. Life can be astonishing, so keep an eye for funny moments. So it gives you tips on when you're on the street, you're not just wandering around, you are actually going with an intention, but you're open to stuff happening in front of your eyes. As an example, a nice little sentence here that he wrote: "We photographers who have our cameras at the ready comment on the absurdities of ordinary life. And often you can come up with an incredibly funny picture." So again, just things to think about when you are on the streets and you are photographing. So to make a long story short, first book or last book that I just talked about, so How I Make Photographs, from Joel Mirowitz. This is good. Matt Stewart, a classic. I mean, you're seeing a lot of people talking about it on Instagram right now because it's such an insightful book. So think like a street photographer. You should have that in your library. And more some of the classics with the Magnum photographers, Streetwise, 300 photographs with some backgrounds on the photographers and the photos. And ultimately this book of a couple of street photographers and also a bit of background behind the photos, called Street Photography Now. And they're all available. I'll put all the links down below. If you have any questions about any of those books, please let me know. And if you would like to actually purchase this one, which is my little zine, I got access to Cycle number 5, which is a very cool location in Montreal. It's all in decay because it was a big factory, but it got just abandoned, but it's a massive building. So I got access to it, so shot in black and white. So I decided to, for my first zine, to take this project and print it. So you can actually also get it with the link down below. So I've been Fred Ranger, and I wish you a very, very good month, a very good year ahead. I'm feeling hopeful. I want to go back to traveling. And again, if you have any questions, ask them down below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification and the thumbs up if you enjoyed this type of content. It encouraged me to do more of these type of videos. So cheers and enjoy life, be happy, and enjoy your books. Cheers.